It's Niyi Sobo. If you're here, that means you're committed to dominating at a high level, and I salute you for that. There's not a lot of people who have the courage and the willingness to chase after greatness, and for you looking to do that, I salute you, and the world needs more of you. All right, so let's talk about how to do that at a higher level, and specifically how to come back stronger after an injury. All right, injuries no joke. I've had a ton of, I can't say a ton of injuries. I played football, and luckily for me, I've only had 2 surgeries. All right, 2 surgeries. I had a ton of shoulder dislocations in high school and bruised sternum. That was actually one of the most painful injuries that I've ever had. Bruised sternum. I went head to head up with this guy in spring ball in college when I was at Oregon State, and felt like my chest just cracked open. Like it's hard to breathe later. What else? Wrist injury. That was a surgery. And I had a separated shoulder a couple times on both sides. This one, I had a torn labrum and got surgery on that as well. All right. Injuries, no joke. Some sports can guarantee you an injury, like football. I'm sure there are other sports where, the injury rate is 100%. Some other sports, less so, maybe golf. But either way, regardless of what sport, even golf, you've seen some of the greatest golfers of all time be sidelined due to injuries. Injury is no joke, and it's a part of every single athlete's life, and certainly the career of any athlete. You're going to have to deal with injury or preventing injury at some point or another. All right. So when injured, there's a challenge of not only getting your body back stronger to perform and evolve, right? Because nobody wants to plateau. Once you have an injury, you don't want to just be the same or kind of go down. You want to be better, right? We want to actually recover from our injury and be better than we were before. That's what we want to do as athletes. There's also the challenge, though, of convincing your body through your mind that it's okay to resume doing the very thing that caused your trauma in the first place, right? Depending on what sports you played, you most likely experienced the injury through trauma, right? When I told you about my bruised sternum, I went head to head with a guy, and it was an actual, I don't even know how it happened because it wasn't even directly to my chest, but for whatever reason, my sternum got bruised. And that was trauma, all right? Football, like you're literally getting car wrecks every single time. Running down on kickoff. I remember running down on kickoff and having to go heads up with 300-pound linemen, when we played Cal, again, when I was at Oregon State, going against Takeo Spikes when I played my first game as a pro against the San Francisco 49ers when I was on the Saints, and going heads up with guys I played Madden against, these big-ass linebackers and shit. It's traumatic. The injuries that you experience register as trauma. So when you're putting your body through that, your body's naturally going to be afraid to do that again. Think about gymnastics. Think about the type of injury that one does experience when you're doing gymnastics, whether twisting an ankle, cracking a kneecap, and then going up and doing that again and convincing your body that it's okay to do that, even though your body is designed to protect you from those very type of things. That's a difficult thing, right? And that's your challenge, because if you have an injury, your body's naturally going to be protecting you. So most physical sports require putting your body in positions that your body will naturally resist. All right. And then, of course, it resists even more when there's trauma involved. So how, when you have these injuries, can you not only come back stronger physically, but mentally as well? How can you actually get back to the point where you're playing at a high level and you're not allowing the fact that you just went through trauma in order to not allow that to screw up your performance on the field, court, etc. All right. What I want to do is break down a timeline for recovering from being hurt. All right. Now, these timelines, these phases, if you will, have varying timelines or the amount of time it takes to get through it. But I want you to focus on the principle behind each phase. And what this allows you to do is focus on winning each phase and not trying to rush or skip over any phase. All right. Now, like I said, I played football. I've been hurt a lot. So I've come back from a lot of injuries, including, again, when I was in high school, virtually every single practice, my shoulder would pop out to the point where I had to stop playing defense because every time I, reached out, it was my right shoulder. Every time I would reach out and try to grab something or tackle, it would come out. And sometimes it would be out for like 5-10 minutes. Sometimes it would slip right back in, but it was very, very traumatic. All right. Now, somehow I found a way to get back to going in there and going heads up again with people and doing really crazy shit, which is what we do as football players, but you're no different. All right. Regardless of the sport that you play. So let's break down these phases. Phase number 1 is the pity phase. All right. This is where you feel like shit. This is where you question whether or not you're able to continue. I remember very vividly a junior in high school. We played against Park Rose, shoulder pop out again. Right. And I went to the sideline and I literally was crying on the sideline. Like I was crying, not because of the pain, but because I was so frustrated that this shit kept on happening to the point where I was literally wondering if I was ever going to be able to play football again. I'm like, am I going to be able to play football? My shoulder keeps popping out and I'm only a junior in high school and I want to play in the NFL. And when you go through injuries, you will feel sorry for yourself. You just got hurt. You should feel sorry for yourself. There's a stage, there's a time for pity. All right. So what you want to do during this phase is allow yourself to feel like shit, but give yourself a timeline to pity yourself. Right. How long is it going to be? A day, 2 weeks, a month? It's really up to you to decide, but make sure you give yourself a timeline. Work through those emotions. There's a lot of emotions. There's fear. There's doubt. Again, you could be doubting whether or not you're able to play your sport again. This is all part of the game. Don't beat yourself up for that. Just work through the emotions. Be honest. Talk with friends. Journal. Go to counseling. See a therapist. All those things are very helpful to work through that initial pity phase. All right. Now let's talk about phase number 2. And this is what I like to call acceptance. This is when you've had time to pity. Now you just got to accept the reality that you just got hurt. And now what do you want to do? All right. Do you want to come back? Or not? The choice is yours. Never has it been more about what you want to do than right now. It's your body. It's your career. Only you know yourself. No coach, no player, no teammate, no physical therapist can force you to come back. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide, what are you going to do about this? It's your body. All right. So this is where you got to make a decision. Research if you need to. Talk to others who have been through it. Let's say let's say you're in the latter part of your career, basketball player. Let's say you're in your mid-30s and you only got a few years left. And just like Kobe, when he, rest in peace, when he tore his Achilles, he had to figure out, like, is this something I really want to come back from this late in my career? I got to make that decision. And again, nobody can make it for you. You have to decide. And ultimately, it's up to you to say, definitively, this is my decision. Either I'm going to hang it up or I'm going to move forward, because none of us get the benefit of knowing the future. None of us know what's going to happen. You could have the best surgeons in the world. You could do everything. You could check every single box. You could have done everything right to get yourself physically ready, but you could still get hurt afterward. Like, that's just the reality. So you have to make the decision, because there's no turning back. Well, I guess there is, but you don't want to be the one who's always flip-flopping in that way. All right. Make the decision. That's phase number 2 in that acceptance phase. Then this allows you to move to phase number 3. All right. And this is a really, really important phase. And this is where a lot of athletes skip this phase, and it's super important, or they go through this phase very haphazardly. And that's the strategizing phase. This is where you got to create a game plan, because you just made a decision to move forward, right? Now you got to create a strategy or a game plan for how you're going to get back stronger after this injury. It's not going to happen itself. You're not going to necessarily get stronger just because you get the surgery and you do a little physical therapy. That's not how it works. In my experience, especially at the pro level, recovery, physical therapy is so difficult. When I was with the Saints and I came back from this surgery, they had me doing things on this shoulder way before. If it was up to me, I wouldn't have been even trying or attempting to do some of the things that they had me do that early. But they know, And there's a reason why guys at the pro level, they come back from injuries at crazy levels because they know how to rehab, they know how to push their bodies, and they understand there needs to be a strategy involved. So here's the first part of that strategizing that you got to pay attention to, setting the goal. All right, how do you want to come back? Do you want to come back stronger? Do you want to come back just normal, as if nothing ever happened? Or like I said, do you want to come back stronger? And this is where I'll challenge you. Look at some athletes from the past who have come back from crazy injuries. I'm going to bring it all the way back to Adrian Peterson, one of the greatest running backs ever, certified Hall of Famer. This dude, my favorite running back ever. This dude was a beast. And if you remember, when he was with the Vikings, he tore his ACL. And again, for running backs and ACL, that's a very serious thing. All right. Now, I'll talk about an athlete who, came back from that before. We'll talk about Willis McGahee. But Adrian Peterson made a goal. He wanted to come back even stronger. He wanted to get MVP. He wanted to break the rushing record. And guess what he did? He came back literally the year after and was like 20-something yards, some small number away from breaking the all-time rushing record. I think he got MVP that season as well. Incredible. His goal was to come back stronger. Drew Brees, when he shattered his shoulder with the Chargers, and I played with Drew Brees at the Saints and saw his level of attention and focus when he throughout the season, as well as towards any injury. He was doing a lot of his rehab stuff all the time. Every single day he was doing prehab. Drew Brees came back even stronger, and he made that his goal. And guess what? He has a book actually called Come Back Stronger. Said he lays out his exact mentality, his exact strategy. And he set the goal. I want to come back stronger than before. I want to be better than before. Willis McGahee, same thing. I don't know if you guys remember. I was in high school at the time. I remember I was at Applebee's and watching on the TV on ESPN, Willis McGahee, and I think he was at University of Miami at the time. And he had this gruesome, I'm talking nasty knee injury where he tore everything, ACL, PCL, MCL, shattered every ligament, came back. Not only did he get in the NFL, but he had an incredible run in the NFL, played for a couple of different teams. He was doing his thing on the Broncos, the Ravens, etc. These guys all decided to come back stronger than before. Just think, what's ahead of you is hours and hours of grueling work, all right? It's important that you set a goal that's both exciting and challenging to give a lot of your drudge work some perspective, some meaning, right? Why else would you want to put yourself through all the things that you're going to have to put yourself through when you're coming back from an injury? There's a reason why a lot of people don't. And I don't want that to be you. I want you to come back stronger. So you got to make that decision. That's got to be the goal. The next part of strategizing is putting together your team. Trainers, physical therapists. Make sure they have a plan and that it's rooted in reality and experience. There's a lot of bad trainers out there. There's a lot of bad physical therapists. Not everyone is good at their job. Have you ever been to a restaurant and it was very mediocre? Shit, the bulk of restaurants that you go to are going to be a little disappointing, let's say. Most people are average at their job. Most people are not trying to be great. And the same goes for trainers, physical therapists, etc. So it's really up to you to make sure that you find and put together a team that you actually trust and have a game plan. All right. This is really important. The next part of strategizing is identifying timelines, making sure you know what you're going to be doing during these timelines. This allows you to be and stay excited and focused on and able to focus on one goal at a time. All right. This is what your strategy needs to be. And all of this needs to be written down. What's the goal? What's the reason behind this goal? What's your game plan, your general strategy for it? And then what are the timelines, benchmarks, etc. All right. So that's that strategizing phase. Now, this is something you want to do before you move on, right? You don't want to just be going and doing physical therapy haphazardly. Old people hurt themselves and go to physical therapy twice a week. That's not what pro athletes do. That's not what the greats do. They have a very, very specific game plan. So if your physical therapist is telling you, hey, I just did surgery on you, come to physical therapy a couple times a week, then you probably don't have the right physical therapist. You got to get somebody who also is in alignment with you and wants to get you back even stronger. And that's going to take a lot more than just going to physical therapy a couple times a week. There needs to be a game plan, or even around the nutrition, sleep, etc., rolling out, foaming, when to do this, when not to do this. All of this needs to be a part of the strategy. Now, once you go through that phase 3, now it's time for phase 4. And this is momentum. This is where you're working your strategy and you're just taking baby steps. All right. You're focusing on one step at a time. There's no need to look any further. And it's really hard to do this when you don't have a strategy laid out, because inevitably you're going to be looking ahead and, oh no, I'm going to come back. You don't need to be worrying about when you come back. You need to be worrying about when you're going to get past this next milestone, this next part of your plan. All right. So review your progress. And whenever you're overwhelmed or whenever there's step backs, right? Sometimes there's step backs or hurdles in your recovery. Maybe your wound got infected after the surgery and you got to go under the knife again, right? All you got to do is reestablish the next goal to accomplish, right? You got to get another surgery. All right, cool. When's the next surgery? First step, schedule it, of course. Your next goal is to get the cast off or take your first walk. The next milestone is to begin jogging. You know, I was looking forward when I got my surgery on my shoulder when I could do a push-up again, because it was like, damn, I can't even do a push-up. Or when I can take off my shirt without being fearful that my arm's going to fall off. These were all important milestones, because once you reach the milestone, guess what you feel? Confidence. I'm making progress, baby. Now, if you're focused on where you are right here, which is you just got able to take your shirt off without there being pain, and you notice the discrepancy between the ultimate goal, which is coming back even stronger, do you see how large of a gap that is? What are you going to feel when you focus on that gap? Discouragement. Man, is this shit ever going to happen? And that's a recipe for disaster when you're in recovery mode. You got to focus on the next step, all right? And it's important to have it written down. Of course, just go piece by piece. Always stay aggressive, focused on what's right in front, all right? So this momentum phase is going to take a while. This is, of course, the bulk of your time, quote unquote, recovering, rehabbing, etc. Phase 5, we'll just call it go time. It's when you've been cleared to play. The doctor said, all right, you're good. But guess what? You and I both know, especially if you've been hurt before, just because you've been cleared doesn't mean you feel confident, ready to go out and play. All right, I don't know about you, especially when it comes to football. I'd be scared as shit sometimes coming back from injuries, especially my shoulder. I'm like, damn, like, is it going to be cool? When my wrist, you see this, they cut me open, man. I fell on my wrist when I was at Portland State against Montana and shattered every ligament in my wrist. Luckily, I didn't break any bones, which was crazy. But got surgery, fixed it up, and that was my senior year. So I started preparing for the pro day, but I couldn't do a lot because my wrist was still in recovery. So long story short, I get picked up by the Saints in camp the first day of practice, where it wasn't even full contact. It was just, you know, shells and jerseys and shit like that. I was cleared to play. And I made my first kind of just little grab somebody up, little, you know, doing a block, and not even full contact. And when I tell you, my wrist, I feel like I broke it again. I was like, oh my God, what happened? Long story short, I go tell the trainers, they're like, oh no, that's perfectly normal. Got a ton of scar tissue in there. It's going to hurt, especially as you begin to add pressure to it, etc. So this was important, and because I didn't know that, right? Now, luckily I had great trainers and physical therapists around me, but I needed to know that, because that would give me confidence to go through and experience that pain the next day and know that it's all part of the process. So what you have to do in this go time, just because you're clear doesn't mean you're going to feel awesome, right? Research and ask experts and people who have been through it before just what to expect, right? I never had a bad knee injury, but I imagine people who have can tell you this is what to expect once you're coming back. You're going to feel a little bit of hesitancy when you're doing this, but it's perfectly okay to do it. Right? So if doctors clear you, then of course trust that advice and get as much pre and post training in to make you feel comfortable. So for me, when it comes to that wrist injury, right? And this is what I started doing after, is just started hitting the bag after practice just to test it out, knowing I didn't want to make my next time that I did it be a high pressure situation. So I was tentative. Get all that out of your system. Make sure that you work through the pain so that you're confident once it comes time to, of course, practice, play, etc. All right. Also, one thing that's very helpful in order to get yourself in full go time mode is have a test that proves that you're ready. Right. There's a great book by Tim Grover. You've probably read it. It's called Relentless. He was the trainer for Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, etc. And he would talk about when he was getting his athletes back from a knee injury. He would, in every single athlete, they would say, okay, yeah, I'm ready. All right, well, I need you to do these box jumps, really high box jumps, and jump down and land on one foot, on that foot that's hurt, or that was hurt, if you will. And let's just say if you're able to do that, you're good to go. Because if you can't do it here on this box jump, we certainly don't want you going to practice. Definitely don't want you going up in a game with that hesitancy. You're not ready. So it's important to get your mind right as well as your physical body right. Also, just make sure to be very forgiving to yourself as you come back. Don't be mad at yourself for feeling hesitant that you just came back from a surgery and now you're putting yourself in traumatic situations again. And I know it sounds a little dramatic to call coming back to play your sport traumatic, but literally that's what you're going through. You're exposing your body to trauma, all right? Whether you play basketball, etc., it's another trauma. That's why we get sore after we play sports. It's trauma to our body. It's all right. And it's okay to put yourself through that, but you got to be forgiving. Understand your body's just trying to protect you. No need to get mad at your body for that, all right? So more than anything, though, you follow this, your mental conditioning is going to have to be pristine. We're talking about visualizations, affirmations, regulating your emotions along the process, having systems in place for ensuring that you're disciplined and follow through on your rehab, etc. All of this is super important, all right? So Killer Instinct is a complete system designed to build the infrastructure for how to dominate at a high level. So that means preparing your mind, mental conditioning, building systems for discipline, making sure you stay on track, creating alliances and partnerships with other athletes, and of course, being surrounded by other really ambitious athletes and getting coached by me on the mental side of the sport, ensuring that you're able to perform and be confident under that pressure, because that's what's important. All right. So for more info, click on the link in the description or go to imnotyou.com/KI. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.